If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we conclude the unravelling of the mysteries behind the remaining 6 Underworld Kingdoms and the origins, motives and cultures of race that claim it as their home. This episode will focus on the Mirrorlands, the Dark Kingdom of the Caribbean. And then there was one, dear explorer. I feel this is the 3rd time I have said this, but we have covered a lot, haven't we? Guilds, legions, spectres, risen. In fact, I have told you pretty much all there is regarding our understanding of the race of the underworld. I bet you there are not many individuals in the Skinlands who can make such a claim. No, sir, but let us not get too emotionally distraught. Let us turn our attention to the last of the major Dark Kingdoms and see what exciting things we can learn. In case you haven't worked it out, the last thing I wish to properly explore with you is the Mirrorlands, the name given to the underworld, but more so the Shadowlands of the Caribbean and parts of North America, so named because it's reflections of the Caribbean islands, given them by the Wraiths known as Les Invisibles. If we were to translate to English, it means they are invisible. They do not know their nature, which is a fairly fitting description for any Wraith anywhere in the underworld, given their existence is built up on unfinished business and lack of purpose. The islands of the West Indies make up the bulk of the Mirrorlands. However, any place where the Creole people have settled make up a great deal of the population are also considered places in the Mirrorlands. These islands and territories are separated by the abyss, Les Invisibles, word for the tempest. The area has 2 seasons, one of which is dominated by maelstroms that make travel to and from the Mirrorlands extremely hazardous, if not downright impossible. The only way to travel safely from place to place in these situations is by skin riding the living. In the middle of the abyss between the Mirrorlands and Oblivion is the island below the sea, which serves as the home of the Les Mysteries and the base of operations for the Loa. Loa are spirits of the African diasporic religion of the Haitian voodoo. They have been incorporated into some revivalist forms in Louisiana voodoo, many of which of the Loa derive from the identities in part from which deities venerated in the traditional religions of West Africa, especially those of the Fon and the Yoruba. In Haitian voodoo, the Loa serve as mediaties between the humanity and the bon Dieu, a transcendent creator divinity. Voodooists believe that over 1,000 Loa exist, the names of which 232 of which are recorded. Each Loa has its own personality and is associated with specific colours and objects. Many of them are equated with specific Roman Catholic saints on the basis of similar characteristics or shared symbols. The Loa are divided into different groups known as Nantron or nations, the most notable of which are the Pitwo and the Rada. According to voodoo belief, the Loa communicate with humans through the dreams and divination, in which turn are given offerings included sacrificed animals. Voodoo teaches that during ceremonies, the Loa possess specific practitioners who, during the possession, are considered Troll, horse of the Loa. Through possessing an individual, voodooists believe the Loa can communicate with other humans, offering advice, admonishment, or healing. A lot of this obviously carries over into the underworld, the Mirrorlands, but I think it's important to understand that the Mirrorlands and the Les Invisibles that occupied is not as old as the rest of the ghosts of the underworld. At best, we are talking no more than 3 centuries, at this moment of our conversation, of course. The roots of the Caribbean Wraiths began in West Africa during the 17th and early 18th centuries. Ancestor worship has widespread, and the living descendants would offer sacrifices that Wraiths would use as a source of pathos, amongst other things of course. In exchange, the spirits or Wraiths were expected to perform duties. The most important of these were redirecting the hand of fate. If the mortal didn't like what they got, sacrifices were made for the spirits to intervene. The Creole Wraiths would perceive these strands rather than affect it outright, as in the case of any Wraith, but Les Invisibles are the only ones to untangle the strands, so to speak. It was an especially important duty of theirs to uphold, to defend the living against the supernatural forces of the world. Before I go on, I should explain what Creole means. It originally meant to describe any person of European but mostly French or Spanish or African descent born in the West Indies or parts of French or Spanish America and thus naturalized in those origins rather than the parent's home country, but would be used to designate anything native to Caribbean, particularly Haiti. But to return back to the mortals of the West Africa at this period, it was not the supernatural lessons and vows that provided them not danger, but, of course, the humans. Slavers would arrive during the late 17th century, steal and tear people apart from their loved ones and ship them away to the New World, New Americas, where the British people would invade, claim as their own and obliterate the natives. Many of these wraiths skin-rode their descendants, unwillingly to be separated from them. They were not prepared and barely able to adapt to this new world of theirs. As you recall, maelstroms were incredibly dangerous and chaotic, ravaging all in its wake. Many wraiths were destroyed, with the only evil bat-shaped lower, Baka or god in voodoo, overwhelming the rest. The Western wraith term, these Baka are equivalent to shades. Only those hid amongst the quick, the visible in the skinlands, where the Baka were metaphysically unable to reach them, would survive, because remember, shades can't have fetters. Despite these dangers, those that weren't destroyed by the destruction of Oblivion and its minions would claim the Caribbean their home. They would learn the storms are seasonal, where calmer periods allowed traversal across the Tempest, even when the constant attacks on the Baka using fonts or nihils to ambush travelers in the Mirrorlands. Both Font and Baka were too numerous, as were the other foul spirits, and the most dangerous spectre in the Mirrorlands, Queen Anacona, the Burning Queen, from her wealthy realm deep within the labyrinth, launching ravenous invasions on the kingdom of the Jalgora, the present-day Haiti. Naturally, hunting parties were organized to take the fight at the source, where different hunting parties met and joined, coming together, and their numbers swelled. At some point, there would be an island that not even the Baka could frequent, and the island would be named the Island Below the Sea, which coincidentally became the name of a 2009 novel by Isabel Allende, who would set this during the Haitian Revolution. Anyway, what the Wraith Hunters would find there was, as previously mentioned earlier in this discussion, powerful beings called Les Mysteries, literally meaning mystery in French. Les Mysteries offered the Les Isabels hunters shelter, which they did. They would spend a lot of time on this island with their hosts, Les Mysteries, sharing knowledge, offering Les Isabels the power to manipulate the Baka, but only if they showed the other Creole wraiths the path and swore allegiance with the Les Mysteries. Whilst many wouldn't swear allegiance, placing a high value on their sense of self and ultimately not trusting the Les Mysteries, many Creole wraiths sought their aid, treating the experience as a religious one, with some going so far devoting themselves to a particular individual. It is said that they were allowed to leave regardless of their choice, but some had a new arcanos at their disposal, concessions, also called servitors. Wraiths are most commonly granted this art when they make a pact with the Les Mysteries, the powerful beings who dwell in the island below the sea in the abyss, becoming lower. It has been known for non-lower to learn conscience as well, though it is rare, with most frequent method being via the Pact of Doom form. Conscience primarily serves as the Les Isabel's answer to castigate. However, the abilities of the servitors allow them to manipulate the Baka rather than Matet itself, the Les Isabel's word for shadow. In the Skinland terms, Matet means master of their head. In voodoo, each worshipper has a special lower, most often the one who first rode or possessed the worshipper. This is the Mat-Tet. The worshipper usually has a special familial relationship with this lower. The Wraith servitors are able to keep dark beings away from themselves, ensuring they can carry out the work of the Les Mysteries. Those who use conscience are often mistrusted, as they manifest aspects of their shadow as their Arcanos marking, which I like to say at this point, they are not a guild. These markings are usually dependent of the nature, or archetype, as it's sometimes called, or the strongest of the dark passions. Those who travel extensively in Stygia try to learn castigate to lessen the effects of these markings. In addition, a serviteur will appear as a spectre to soul sight, due to the close bond with the shadow required by the conscience. But to go Back to the Wraiths once more. Much was going on during their departure, however. Fisher Amadas swept through the Caribbean, subjugated its native peoples, and consigned their souls to the distant forges of paradise. Golden citadels rose overnight to cast long shadows over an enslaved populace that was forced to build the tempest ports that sustained the conquest to come. The Fishers ruled for the Caribbean for over a century and grew rich on the endless tide of souls and tribute that to it. Servitor or not, the Caribbean Wraith hunters would find that on their return to the Mirrorlands, could not actually return to it at all. They'd become so unfettered by their descendants' forced conversion to Christianity of their bloodthirsty masters. Those that pledged their services to the Les Mysteries found shelter on the island below the sea as the storm season approached, but to the others that hid in the Skinlands, that option was not available to them anymore. In a desperate attempt to rescue as many as possible, a Ritier d'An Bas de la Roy was formed, meaning reclaiming the soul from the waters of the abyss, or more plainly, removed from below water. This was a ceremony to refetter wraiths to the living. This used something known as govi, which is a sacred urn or pitcher in Haitian voodoo, used to hold the spirit of an ancestor as fetters, which did save many wraiths, placing them in the Mirrorlands, but obviously not all. This storm, however, was very likely the third Great Maelstrom. It tore through the Caribbean with astonishing force, and it whipped the seas to a froth as it scoured half the fisher population from the face of the Shadowlands. The battered survivors fought with grim determination against an unyielding tide of ravenous spectres. Galleons sank, citadels crumbled to ash, and fishers screamed into the darkness for salvation that never came. Les Invisibles made attempts to reconnect the living, many through possession and retaching the old ways to the quick, or les cheval, meaning horse. New relationships were born, and the seeds of rebellion had been sown as both Les Invisibles and les cheval were young and filled with rage, tasting the first drops of freedom and revolution, with the possessions becoming louder and bolder, making said teachings more visible in the process. This would eventually lead to the establishment of Haiti, the first free black republic in the Western's New World. Haiti is the heart and the soul of the Mirrorlands. According to our research, is credited to Mama Petro, who would service the Mirrorlands many years later after Haiti's establishment. She claimed the mantle of the first Loa. From the islands of below the sea, she encouraged others to come with her to return to Les Mysteries' knowledge. Many spoke against her, the Loas and Les Mysteries, but many followed all the same, returning with knowledge, trinkets, and new power. What would happen is that Les Invisibles would view the Les Mysteries as an entity to serve and be served, with the island below the sea being a stronghold of the Les Invisibles, with steady flow of traffic to and from the island throughout the calm season, despite the resistance. The resistance I speak of in the Mirrorlands takes on the form of two leading factions, the followers of Rada, who are suspicious of the Les Mysteries, led by a Creole wraith known as Rada. She and her follower hold a general peaceful philosophy and in favour of aiding their descendants and others among the living directly, and are filled mostly with older wraiths. As you might expect, it is the younger Creole wraiths that have been slaves in life and that were naturally and understandably filled with rage that demanded more direct actions. These are the followers of Petro, who are also named after the one leading them. Petro, who was a former slave who was put to death for inciting revolt. It was Petro and their followers that got the credit of creation of Haiti, a group that vastly outnumbers the followers of Rada. Whilst there is a disagreement on how to deal with the Lachevaux, both sides ask for guidance of the others, working together in teams in great need. Rada Invisibles grant healing, while Petro wraiths offer protection and strength. Many from both factions also follow a mystery and become a Loa, serving as the eyes and ears of the Les Mysteries at both sides of the cosmic mirror. They are powerful beings and are seen as greatly important additions to the Mirrorlands. Yes, indeed, dear explorer, mirrors do play a greater role in the culture of the Legends of Bells, and indeed the world over. Throughout the ages, they are believed to have predicted the future, captured and transported souls, and reflected far more than the user's image. Mirrors have served as metaphors with myriad meanings, as symbols of divinity and power, as implements of distortion, and as tools of self-reflection. In this instance, the cosmic mirror is a term, or rather, a descriptor of the entity of reality, what we see and don't see. The visible, the quick, and the invisible, the Wraiths, is separated by the mirror's surface. The Mirrorlands lies close to the surface of the mirror, whilst the Mirrorlands is a shadowy reflection. Prove that both visible and invisible are bound and that one side can affect the other. In addition to this, the invisible, or les invisibles, are made of two parts, the Mirrorlands and Abyss. Both invisible and visible interact with each other only by passing the surface, with some places more difficult than others. A Nantron, a group of Creole Wraiths bound to the same family, i.e. a circle, or particular family or group of lower voodoo spirits, depending on who you ask, will travel to the areas where the surface of the mirror, the shroud, is thinner. This can also take the form of establishment or temples, which of particular potent haunts, but only if the Wraiths family wishes to stay in touch with them, hence the powerful pool of emotions. When a person dies, it is their soul, the gross bonnage, that moves into the invisible. In Western Wraith terms, this is the psyche. The tibonage, the conscience, separates the living and invisible soul, both good and bad. With this in mind, the shadow is not to be destroyed, so to speak, but accepted as part of the whole. Their methods involve Gyov and Hongan as explored before. Sacrifices, items which become relics in the Mirrorlands, and animals and foods take on the form of Pathos, which is devoured by Les Cheval when mounted by the family ghost. In exchange, Les Invisibles share knowledge and offer protection to their families. What we have, my friend, is a unique culture among the inhabitants of the underworld. The Caribbean are, by and large, a mystery to those on the outside. The domain touches 3 continents, 3! Africa, America, and the Caribbean, a colossal region thick in spectres and some of the worst and violent weathers the Tempest has to offer. You can understand why there is a lack of knowledge of lizards and bills from the Stygian Wraiths. It simply comes from a lack of contact. Some dangers discourage the Stygian Wraiths to explore these lands lizards and bill and lower call their home. And then there is us. My knowledge almost fully exhausted on you, my dedicated ghost hunter. You know when I first saw you, I did not think you would last the first session. If it was not for the fear of ghosts scaring you off, it was my wild eccentricities. There's no need to be polite about it. I know damn well how bloody peculiar I come across, especially to you young kiddos, but I will not apologize for it. I'm just a simply happy, jolly ghost hunter who is bloody proud and excited by the work he does. Throughout my career, I have opened the doors of curiosity to many a mind across many ages, races, creeds, genders, and a large spectrum of possibilities in between. Few have remained a part of my lectures as long as you have, and while some have been more boring than others, I'm just so grateful to know you, my fun, fellow chap. You have proven to be a valuable member of the Phoenix Institute. Your unique talents have been noted by my superiors in the Coalition, who were just ecstatic to meet you. But enough of all this emotional chit-chat. There is a castle that needs to be clearing out. Grab those cases, the rifle, the rocket launcher. Explorer, the Phoenix Institute never rests! To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, and you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.